the floor is yours, Carl, and I bet you're going to get the endorsement of this organization.
Well,
don't take it for granted, but I bet you are.
I would certainly, thank you, Mark. Thank you for the gracious introduction. If you can't hear me, I'll try and project, and I hope, please wave in the back if I'm not speaking loudly enough. My name is Karl Peterjohn. I am the current County Commissioner for District 3, which is Western Sedgwick County, west of 119th Street, except for whatever is in the city of Mays and Denniscott Township in the city of Clearwater. But everything else to the county lines is in the 3rd County Commission District. Also, I have most of West Wichita, generally south of 29th Street. Generally, it varies a little bit. It's a little bit like a funnel set on the side pointing towards the west. My easternmost street is St. Paul Street, just a couple blocks west of the old Riverside Hospital. So if you live in that area, I'd sure appreciate your vote, your support. We've got some material here. Let me begin by pointing out, and I'm going to look forward to taking some questions. Give me a couple minutes to outline the importance of one vote on the County Commission. We have had a large number of 3-2 votes since I've been on the County Commission. I was first elected in 2008. I defeated Marcy Gregory in 2008. She was a Democrat then, and when she became mayor of Goddard in 2007, mill levy in Goddard was a little over 14 mills. Today the mill levy in Goddard is a little bit over 31 mills. So you can see that there's a difference because we at Sedgwick County, we've struggled financially, but we've been able to hold the line on the mill levy. And in fact, when I was elected, the mill levy was a little bit over 31 mills, and today it's a little bit over 29 mills. So we've had a 2 mill reduction. Thank you. A little bit over 6%. But I'd like to talk about the importance of a commissioner. Now, there are 5 county commissioners in Sedgwick County. And if you follow local county politics, 3-2 votes are not infrequent. We've had this happen on issues related to the Second Amendment and concealed carry related issues at the courthouse. We've had this related on fiscal issues. I'm a strong supporter of voter empowerment. If Kansas is going to catch up with our surrounding states, we need to have the provisions in place to protect taxpayers like voters in 3 of our 4 surrounding states, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Colorado, have today, that require voter approval before the mill levy for property taxes can be raised. This is controversial, but Sedgwick County has been leading the pack. We are the one county that has been saying, Topeka legislators, they've been talking about requiring cities and counties. Now, the opponents, and I've got a couple of opponents from both parties on this, we've had 3-2 votes at the county level. Should we have voter empowerment? You all get to decide if local sales tax issues go up. Well, I say, well, why doesn't it include property taxes or other taxes that people have to pay too? Well, we've had 3-2 votes on that repeatedly. We have it in our platform. We worked to make this happen statewide. I don't know if you're following how closely, we had a great piece of good news today. It's unfortunately, I think, going to be temporary, but the Obama regime was slapped down by the U.S. Supreme Court concerning their Immigration Act. Well, there's been efforts to use grants to entice local governments, cities and counties, to follow Washington's agenda on a whole host of issues. And we voted 3-2 on this. When I first came on the commission, we voted 3-2 against what was called a EPA HUD DOT sustainability grant, which was basically a regional planning project. And after the commission switched in 2011, and believe me, that wasn't due to Commissioner Ranzo joining the commission then. He replaced Commissioner Parks, and we've been solid. The 3rd and 4th districts have voted together on this. But we then switched 3-2 to take the grant and take the federal money. Well, when Commissioner Howell joined us, we 3-2, we voted and got Sedgwick County out of it, and joined other counties like Butler and Sumner County that have rejected rejected this grant. There's been criticisms of the county for holding the line on spending, and if any of you are interested in going into the details on this, I'd be happy to do it. But I would say, people have asked me, we didn't have the money for the Judge Riddell's Boys Ranch, which is an excellent program for helping troubled youth, and we had to shut the ranch down. Another 3-2 vote. I was in the minority on that one. But we had over $5 million for an elephant barn. People are pachyderms. Now, I admit among Republicans, pachyderms are popular, but I'll stick with the people. And we had a 3-2 vote on whether we could do this, try and work out both together. And Commissioner Ranzow and I were in the minority again. We lost that one 3-2. And interestingly enough, the key point is, if you followed our budget battle last year, there was talk about county budget cuts. And the zoo was #1 on the county budget cuts. Let me assure you, the zoo, this is a Washington and also local media game that's played. We had a reduction in the growth of spending. The zoo actually is in a position this year to receive $150,000 more in tax funds than they received last year. What we're battling over at the moment is the fact that, I don't know if any of you are like me and have a zoo membership. Anybody here have a zoo membership? The zoo gets a little over, between 40 and 50% of their funding comes from tax dollars. The county has a little over 100 employees who work at the zoo. Their job is they work at the zoo, and they're part of our 2,700 roughly overall full-time employees. The zoo funding is actually, we put together $150,000, which is about a 2.5% increase. But it's a reduction from what they were hoping and planning and expecting to get under a prior agreement. And we said, hey, we can't afford it. Our tax base, here's the problem in this community. The tax base for property taxes, and most county revenue is property tax. We get a little sales tax. I could go into that if you're interested. But the property tax is the bulk of the county's revenue source. And because of the Obama economy having the boot heel of Washington on our economy and the rest of the states, our tax base has been growing at less than 1.5% a year. And that's a challenge, and to get out of it. Now let me mention a couple positive things that we have been able to do that I think deserve some attention. We had a totally inadequate downtown tag office on Murdoch Street, and if you've had a chance, visit the new facility at Meridian and Douglas. There's plenty of parking, there's public restrooms, there's a lot of stuff that the other facility didn't have. And we've got a queueless line so that if you're digitally oriented, you can get online without having to sit there and tie up your whole day. It's a big, big positive. We've also been able to solve the law enforcement training arrangement that the city and the city police department and Central County Sheriffs have been working on. This goes back to the last century. And in the process, the fire district, which Central County has, that covers a lot of the suburban fire districts outside Wichita, excluding Wichita and Derby, and several other towns I could go into if you want me to. Anyway, we're going to be able to use the city's facilities on that. That's a big step in the right direction. To try and get the economy going, the county helps fund Wichita State University, and the county is behind this new innovation campus. We're hoping that's going to work out as a real positive. Now I want to get back to, when I ran in 2008, I ran on 3 main issues. I've term limited myself. If I'm reelected, this will be my last term as a county commissioner. The only thing that will stop me once I'm reelected from that is if the good Lord takes me home before I finish that term. Hope he doesn't, but life has challenges. Second issue was, we have stopped the eminent domain abuse for special interests in this community. The TIF subsidy districts. I voted against every TIF subsidy district that's come before the county commission. Most of those have been 3-2 votes. I've won some, I've lost some. But since 2015, with the conservative majority, we have not approved any TIF subsidy districts, which I think is a big plus. It hurts our county tax base. Now, my opponents have said, well, you guys, it's too extreme. You get, you know, my opponents have challenged that I'm not a real Republican in some ways. Well, I'll tell you, there's an easy solution for solving the county's problems. It's not one I support. In fact, it's one I oppose. And it's one the county's used in the past. And that's very simple. You raise the mill levy, raise taxes. I won't do that. And I support not only giving that power to the people, but applying it to government across the board from the State House on down here in Kansas. And if I have the privilege of serving 4 more years, I've managed to turn the county platform around on that issue, and I'd continue to push for it. I believe that my 8 years on the county commission, we've got a positive record. Not only talk the talk, but walk the walk on the various issues that we are facing in Sedgwick County. So I'd sure ask for your support and help. My campaign manager, John Todd's here in front. I've got to go to a city council meeting in the northern part of my district, close to the Harvey County line. So I'm going to be here for about the next 15 minutes. I thank you for your attention and time. I'll be happy to answer any and all questions you might have.
If you have a question for Karl, raise your hand and keep your questions concise. Karl is our speaker tonight. We don't want the speech to come from the question. Of course, you can stage your question if you have it. Does anyone have a question for Karl? If not, I have written down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, James has one. Go ahead, James.
Karl, I thought this elephant thing at the zoo, everybody has different opinions at the zoo, but I thought it started with 2 elephants, and aren't we up to 6 or something like that now?
We had 2 elephants, 1 died, and we got 6 elephants, so we're up to 7. So we've got a herd of elephants at the zoo. So if you happen to have extra brush, tree clippings, or shrubbery, now no poison ivy, but they could sure use it. An elephant eats about 100 pounds of low quality foliage a day. So, you know, 7 elephants, no, I take that back. It's 300 pounds a day because it's over a ton a week. So, I don't know why we needed 7. We've got a facility that's good for 9, and they're obviously hoping to breed them. And a funny digression. I went to a zoo board meeting, and I was on the zoo board last year. I'm not on it at the moment. Commissioner Howell is the elected representative on the zoo board. But I attended the meeting, and I asked our zoo director, who's the expert, Mark Reed, I said, Mark, what's the chance that any of those elephants, since most of them are female, are pregnant? He said, well, they've done this and they've done that, and we know there's no way they're going to be pregnant, that they could have a pregnant elephant. Now, I don't know if any of you saw the article in the paper about the female elephant down in Dallas, who was part of that group that was brought in here, but she developed an elephant, she delivered an elephant calf about 3 or 4 weeks after they got here. So it's another case of, as former Defense Secretary Rumsfeld talked about, known knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns. I think there's a lot about elephant obstetrics and gynecology we do not know. But
Okay, another question? Anybody? Well, go ahead.
Karl, you won the election originally in 08. You won the challenge from Boswell. What tactic do you believe the other side is going to use against you that didn't work the last time or two? What do you think the party line, their party line, is going to be on why you should be not reelected?
I'm not sure what direction they're going to come at directly. I mean, it's interesting, my opponent was on the state school board between 2008 and 2012. He was elected in 2008, served from 2009 to 2013. And during that time, he recommended significant increases in state spending without recommending where they were going to pay for it. And the other thing, in the August 2012 Lawrence Journal World, there's an article from that time frame. I'm afraid I haven't memorized the date, but he proposed regulating homeschoolers and supported that. So he's got a public record to defend. He didn't run as emphasizing his military record. He is a retired colonel from the U.S. Air Force. but he then went to work for the school district for about a dozen years. I suspect he's going to try and run on issues relating to the conservative majority, because if he's elected and Tim's re-elected, you'll have a switch back to the majority. You've got to realize, I've joked about the fact, people would ask me, what's it like being on the county commission where four of the five commissioners are Republicans? And I said, well, you know, I've been in the minority for several years because we were often split 3-2 the other way. But I suspect that based on his comments, he said, I'm not a real Republican, which I would beg to differ, and I would cite my positions on pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, pro-constitutional conservative in terms of standing up for the provisions of the Kansas Constitution that says, A, all political power is inherent in the people. B, I'm a firm believer in the protections of the First, Fourth, Fifth, Ninth, and 10th Amendments, and strongly believe that we have a government that's out of control, particularly at the national level. And I think he's going to come at me with the fact that, you know, you're getting involved in issues that the county's not involved in, like WIC. Well, let me tell you, it just shows his ignorance. The WIC program is a federal program. The state administers it for Washington. Well, what's the county connection? The county's got a contract with Sedgwick County, and we administer it here in Sedgwick County for the state. So is the county involved? Yeah. Should we be involved and speak out on it? I would be derelict of my duty if I did not. But I think that's one of the reasons he's planning to, that's one of the areas he's planning to criticize me.
Jennifer, go ahead.
I don't know all what you can and can't do. Mark, have you asked him about your sign problem?
That's strictly city. He's on the county side, but that's a good topic for another day, and I'm sure he'll be interested in hearing about it when.
Well, we have approved. It was on a 4-1 vote, and I voted against it. If you're talking about political signs.
No.
But the
signs they took.
First Amendment
The signs they took up from the clinic are crosses and
Oh.
and all the signs that we have, they came, the police came, the county guy, what's his name? Or the
City.
City guy. This is really more of a city question, so that's okay, but just real quickly, it's a First Amendment thing. In 2004, it was adjudicated all the way up to the national level. The police came out and said, you no longer have to put a dog leash on your signs. You don't have to physically touch them. It's been ruled on at the federal court level, 9th Judicial District. And now, even though there's been no change to the First Amendment between 2004 and today, we have a new person in this sign code enforcement on the city side, and he just decided all on his own that he was going to take the signs. He warned me, and I said, we can't do that. I said, it's the First Amendment. It's protected by the First Amendment. And he said, keep in mind, now he takes an oath when I'm assuming he took an oath of office. He says, the First Amendment has nothing to do with my job. You know, those signs are not. I said, oh, well, I said, you don't understand. I tried to explain it very nice to him, but he is not pro-life.
Well,
and then I went ahead and filed a complaint that why did you take up the signs at the clinic and not all the memorial signs around town, like where people die? Same thing, only no one pulls those up at night.
Well, but there is, it's symptomatic of a bigger problem. You had all the members of the Democrat caucus in the U.S. Senate basically saying we need to replace the First Amendment and we need to overthrow the U.S. Supreme Court Citizens United decision concerning what can be put out concerning candidates prior to a presidential election. And whether it's at a local level or at the state level, we've got some concerns in terms of yard signs, and we may have conflicts between the county resolution governing in the unincorporated area and what the various municipalities are doing based on state law. And I may need a lawyer to sort it out, Jerry, but I've had the county, as people have asked what it's like to be a county commissioner, I'll share this. Your phone calls get returned a little faster, and if I tell a joke down at the courthouse, I'm funnier than Jay Leno. Now, see, younger people out there don't get it. If I said Jimmy Kimmel, would you recognize? Okay.
Okay. More questions? Anybody? Okay, I'm gonna start on my list of 5 here. The first one, I want you to talk a little bit about the budget, and if you could fold that in with Michael O'Donnell's race. If he wins, is that gonna make a difference on the budget? You're gonna be able to hold the line?
I think
Can we
Michael.
talk about Michael's race? I know he's not here, but I know that.
Michael's race is actually in many ways critical.
Okay.
Because Tim Norton is part of the old history, I think, of politics in Sedgwick County. He's had the longest term on the county commission and been in office since 2000. If he's reelected this year, he'll have 20 years on the commission. Tim, as some people have said, well, Tim's a very affable fella, bright fella, hardworking, but Tim is a liberal. He's a big government advocate. He told me one of the biggest mistakes, well, it's private conversation, I shouldn't go into that, but Tim's district is one that a good Republican, a hardworking Republican like a Michael O'Donnell should be able to win, because Michael's got name recognition, he works hard, he'll be well funded, and I think he's got some issues. This issue of voter approval on taxes and putting a lid on government growth. The county's budget is a little bit over $400 million a year, about $412 million. That includes the fire district, which is a separate legal entity. It's a little bit complicated. Their budget's about $18 million a year. But the county has about 2,700 full-time employees. The sheriff's office is our biggest department. They've got about 500, just a shade under 550 authorized positions. If any of you are looking for jobs, Sedgwick County's got openings, albeit at the detention department, but we've got openings in some other areas too. In terms of other areas on the budget, we've got about 135 people in the district attorney's office. The county's got 911, emergency management, I mentioned the fire district, the district attorney's office, about 135 people, EMS is 175. I don't know if I'm getting into too much green eye shade or not, Mark.
I didn't want to let people think that Michael O'Donnell's race really doesn't matter, because we have Karl, we have Ranzow, and we have Jim Howell, and that's 3 votes, and that everything's taken care of.
Well,
it's not the case.
Let me share this. There are counties and cities have home rule powers. Cities are constitutional, counties are statutory. But for us to do a charter resolution under home rule, we'd actually need a 2/3 vote. And so Michael's vote would be critical if there's 4 out of 5 of us. I don't know if you saw this week the discussion we had on the challenge of the WIC program, and it got into the broader discussion of illegal immigration, and just saying illegal immigration for some folks, that is you're racist if you do it. Well, I'm sorry. If you get a chance, watch the videotape from that meeting. It was very educational on the Orwellian effort to muzzle us and use Alinskyite tactics to determine the public debate and how we can and should talk. But Michael's race is critical because it's going to take 4 out of 5 to pass a charter resolution at the county level. And that's true out of the city too. They need 5 out of 7.
Okay. If you'll allow me one more, and I'm going to still keep my word. Okay.
You
1 minute.
You got 5 more minutes. Mark.
Oh, I got 5 more. Okay, that's good. All right. I'm going to challenge you on this one a little bit, because the only thing I've heard tonight that I disagreed with, and that is that I think elections are great term limiters. And in the case where we got a good person doing a good thing, it just discourages me when they say, well, I'm going to set a voluntary term limit, and when they're the best person for the job. And I think you've been an outstanding commissioner, and I hate to see you term limit yourself out. But it's your life, and you have every right to do it. But.
Well, I'm just following George Washington's model, and I thought it was and I think it's a model we should all follow.
How can I argue with that? Okay.
We need a new constitutional amendment so we can keep on serving.
Well, that's strictly personal, but here's my challenge for anybody who's thinking about running for office. If I serve out the rest of my term, I'll spent 12 years on the Sedgwick County Commission. If I couldn't get done what needs to get done in 12 years, somebody else needs to come there and do the job and go from there. That's my opinion. I'll take this
Well,
back and,
I just wanted to say Grover Cleveland did it right too, okay? You know, he was out and then he was back in. So
well, but he
you can
ran
do
all
that.
the time. He
You-
lost,
you can
lost
do
in
that,
between.
yes.
Hey, you were talking about that empowerment, on controlling the mill levy. Are you talking about that's where you need the 2/3 vote to get that in?
No, well, actually, there's some things we've got to get state authorization from, and that is one where the state would control us on that. Jim. We don't, there are certain things we cannot charter out of under state law, but if we can charter, it takes a 2/3 vote by us, and then it's subject to a protest petition. So if the people say, wait a minute, the county commission's out to lunch, they've approved X, we don't like X, you guys, as citizens in Sedgwick County, can do a petition drive and force a referendum vote. And this is true at the city level too. That's how the vote, if you remember back in 2012 on the Ambassador Hotel subsidy, you know, that special interest subsidy for them, that's why that got on the ballot, because it was under the charter, under the home rule provisions and the charter ordinance for the city of Wichita. Mark?
Well, anybody else have a question? I don't want to monopolize the time, but I got one on the Judge Riddell Boys Ranch.
Okay.
At the Pachyderm meeting, perhaps a year and a half ago or so, when the Judge Riddell Ranch was a topic, there was a handout showing the cost per inmate or per person there, which was just astronomical. And how much, I mean, why in the first place did the county commission allow that, and how much hands-on management can the county commission have if we were to get that reopened?
Well, we haven't reopened the ranch, but we've reopened the program and expanded it to include young women as well as young men. The costs are high in part because we've got both federal and state rules and mandates. And for instance, the state rules on us for that program, they didn't apply to their own juvenile facilities up in Topeka. So that's part of the cost. Part of it was we were receiving funding from the state, and they said you need to do certain things. And so, but all these programs are extremely expensive. I don't know of a one that isn't that's less than $200 per person per day. Because well, it's part of it is education. Well, just think about it. If you factor in the educational component as well as taking care of meals, taking care of supervision, I mean, we'd have about, I'm trying to think of the number of residents we had out there. I was thinking it was, when we shut it down, we were down around, I think a little over 40 was the maximum number of residents at that facility. And of the 40, we'd have to have 2 people there at night covering, I mean, it's a 24/7 operation. So those are always very expensive. We did look at costs, but frankly, with the way that program worked and talked to the adults who had been through it, who had turned their lives around, I think in the long run, if shutting it down had been penny wise, pound foolish, restoring the program like we did, even though we have not restored the facility and using it, and that's kind of up in the air what we're going to do with it. What we did do was we've reestablished a program to work with these students, and our juvenile corrections people say that they think they can do the program more effectively at a lower cost without having the separate residential facility. I think WSU is monitoring the program. We should get a report from Dr. Beeson out at WSU, I expect within the next year or two, to get an idea on whether we're meeting that goal or not. But let me close by saying I really appreciate you coming out, your attention and time. Grab some material. If you live in my district, please grab some yard signs. And I'd sure appreciate your vote on August 2nd. And I'd love to have the KRA's endorsement. Thank you.
Okay, that's going to happen yet tonight, or a vote will happen on that yet tonight, because it's nice to get an endorsement early enough that you can use that. And we'll take that. You can wait here, or you can go. It won't be until we're further down the agenda.
Unfortunately,
you have to go, and I agreed to it.
I've got I've got a city council meeting I've got to attend to in another part of the district.
Let me just leave you with one parting thought, and if anybody disagrees with me, let me know. I think that the Sedgwick County Zoo it's rated really high as far as zoos in the world. And I think that that's a good place to, not to waste money, but a good place to spend money. I would love to see us become the best zoo in the world, and I think we have that within our grasp. So it could happen.
We've got a great zoo. I've been a member for many, many years and made donations and provided support, but I'm not going to write blank checks for anyone or anywhere when we're talking about tax funds. I love the fact we've got a lot of civic-minded folks who donate lots of money, whether it's to the zoo or to other areas, but the county's providing about a little over 40% of the funding, but we've got 3 out of 35 members on the board, and I believe the taxation without representation, you know, we had a little dust-up with the Brits about that a couple of centuries ago, but I think it applies to the zoo too. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Carl. Thank you very much for being here.
Let me get around and shake hands with everybody and Karl,